Assessing livestock for transport, a guide to assist people to comply with the Australian Standards and Guidelines for the Welfare of Animals, Land Transport of Livestock. Most people will be familiar with this Fit to Load guide from Meat and Livestock Australia. It details conditions which would make an animal unfit to load for transport. People will also be aware of the WA Codes of Practice, which state that sheep and cattle must be fit to load prior to being transported. Now, Australian standards for the land transport of livestock, which will replace codes of practice in every Australian state and territory, state that animals must be assessed as fit for the intended journey prior to being transported. It is not permitted to transport an animal which is unable to bear weight on all its legs, severely emaciated, visibly dehydrated, showing signs of severe injury or distress, suffering from a condition which is likely to cause increased pain or distress during transport, blind in both eyes, or in late pregnancy unless the journey is less than 4 hours to the final destination. See the standards for definitions of late pregnancy for each species. Penalties could apply for anybody who breaches these standards. We'll now have a look at some examples of animals which would not be fit for transport. Any animal which is unable to bear weight for whatever reason on all of its legs is not fit to transport. Here, sheep are not weight bearing for a variety of reasons, from recent abscesses to old injuries which have since healed. These sheep have all been assessed as unfit for transport as they are not weight bearing on all of their legs, irrespective of the cause. Animals which are assessed as unfit must not be taken to any destination. That includes abattoirs and knackeries, as well as sale yards. Severely emaciated animals would be assessed as unfit for transport. Here are some examples, and to help you make that decision about whether an animal is severely emaciated or not and fit for transport or not, the Department of Agriculture has brought out 2 farm notes, one called Welfare Decisions for Cattle, one called Welfare Decisions for Sheep. Severely dehydrated animals would be assessed as unfit too, but an assessment would have to be made based on the history of the animal and an examination in the yard. Animals showing signs of severe injury or distress must not be transported. Sometimes that is an easy assessment to make. This cow is clearly in pain from an infected udder. The animal is lying down, has its ears back and is reluctant to move. But what about an injury such as a broken horn? Depending on the nature of the injury, the animal may or may not be in pain. In order to make the right decision, study the animal as well as the injury. Is it showing signs of pain or distress? Is it avoiding other animals or isolating itself? If it is, like this bull which is panting and isolating itself from other animals, it must not be transported. If an animal has a condition which is likely to cause increased pain or distress through the act of transportation, it must not be loaded. While some of these conditions may not be causing the animal extreme pain or distress while yarded, the act of transporting this animal on a truck with other animals being bumped, moved and loaded may well cause that condition to increase the pain and distress to the animal. Remember, animals assessed as unfit for transport must not be transported to any destination, including abattoirs or knackeries. Animals which are blind in both eyes, irrespective of whether they have painful conditions or not, must not be loaded. Animals in late pregnancy may only be transported in line with the standards. For example, cattle which are more than 37 weeks pregnant and sheep which are more than 19 weeks pregnant may only be transported if the journey is less than 4 hours. Check the standards for the species of animal that is being transported. So, what can be done with animals which are unfit for transport? The options are to provide treatment or monitoring as appropriate on site to assist the animal to recover. A vet can examine the animal and it can then be transported under veterinary advice, or the animal can be humanely euthanized. It's important to know that everyone in the transport chain, from owners, agents and drivers to those receiving animals, have a responsibility to adhere to these standards. If you are in any doubt about which standards apply to your circumstances, you should consult the standards and guidelines for the land transport of livestock. More details can be found at www.livestockwelfarestandards.net.au or contact your local Department of Agriculture and Food.